son de cientos de las no las califico, digo lo que realmente pasó, y de pronto ¡puf! Desapareció el alemán, desapareció todo ese trabajo previo, y cuando empieza de nuevo a solucionarse ese tema, pasan 5 o 6 meses, digamos, se estabiliza la situación y se empieza de nuevo, hay que esperar 2 años para que madure. Ese es el gran tema de la publicidad, de la comunicación, que no es solamente el mensaje, que sea el tiempo y forma, sino que la continuidad. Entonces, esto es lo que ustedes tienen que poner ciudadanos o el habitante del propio país. 17 millones de habitantes que esperan que haya una manifestación parte de la sociedad. Así que bueno, acá tenemos si tienen alguna pregunta, con todo gusto, para contestar. ¿Sí? ¿Perdón? ¿Qué tal? ¿Perdón? Bueno, ahí hay un poco de magia, ¿no? La realidad es que estamos hablando, yo tengo un amigo, no sé, que es ecuatoriano, nos disputamos el podio de los países con las mayores calamidades políticas de América Latina. Hoy nos ganó Ecuador por riesgo país, pero a riesgo país. Venía ganando Argentina. Venía ganando Argentina. Lamentablemente no hay, en ese sentido estamos como un poco desprotegidos. Y está en nosotros mismos ver de qué se pueden el amigo acá preguntaba, en un momento crítico mi negocio está colapsando por falta de consumo, no tengo manera que me consuma, o sea, falta de demanda del producto, ¿qué puedo hacer? Ahí viene un tema casi mágico, ¿sí? Hay que ver el escenario. En un país con condiciones y tratando de ordenar la economía sería recurrir al Estado o a los organismos que pueden contribuir a la financiación, pero tiene que ver con la financiación, tiene que ver con la capacitación y tiene que ver con la propia autocrítica, ¿no es cierto? Yo, una respuesta así, pelada, es como que no tiene mucho sentido. Sería, mira, hacer las cosas mejor y tener más plata en el bolsillo y poner atención en el foco, es un poco como que son verdades, pero también tiene que ver con la forma que vos seguimos. Vamos, tenés una desestabilización financiera. Tenés que estabilizar, tenés que actualizar. Porque si vos tenés un programa financiero y toda tu mente está puesta en ese programa financiero, estás descuidando la parte central de tu negocio, que es vender un servicio. Entonces tenés que estabilizar eso. Eso implica, viste, tomar el toro por los cuernos, por los cachos. Ver de qué manera parás eso y que te pueda permitir a vos programar tu futuro. Y tu futuro tiene que ser realista. O sea, vos podés tener una idea brillante, porque hablábamos de las especializaciones hace un rato, ¿no? Las especialidades. Es decir, bueno, yo quiero hacer un parque temático de entretenimientos, porque tengo ahí un terreno que está en medio de la cordillera y tiene una buena vista. Pero bueno, en realidad lo que tiene que tener el terreno es una accesibilidad del mercado. Tenés que estar cerca de los... Entonces tenés que revisar las pautas de tu negocio. No hay una fórmula mágica para un negocio que está al borde del colapso, ¿cierto? Pero sí tiene que haber un escenario. Y ahí entra el tema de... Tengo que terminar porque se me terminó mi tiempo. Patricio me está corriendo, pero... Así que...
Muchas gracias, André, por esta introducción. Vamos a hablar de productos turísticos, pero en realidad si no tenemos claro hacia dónde va a estar dirigido, vamos, el proyecto, el producto básicamente va Pero bueno, hablamos de mercados reales, también tenemos mercados potenciales. Y por eso ahora vamos a checar, tenemos en este caso a nuestro amigo, que sí, desde Estados Unidos, para comentarnos cuál es la dinámica de este mercado potencial. Recordarán ustedes antes de la pandemia, uno del principal mercado para el producto de qué país, de qué país. Aparte de Ecuador, que es el mercado potencial ya externo, ¿cuál? Estados Unidos. Precisamente por eso es que, ¿cierto? Mire, a la mitad de Cuenca hay en Estados Unidos. Es precisamente ese mercado y ahora vamos a comentar acerca de esta potencialidad del mercado cuando es el turismo sostenible, que es la última parte ya en la que vamos. Entonces, en este aspecto, no sé si está, vemos ya la. Solamente estamos ahí con problemas con el proyector, pero no sé qué hacemos cosas si no. Bueno, a ver que le ponemos de la computadora, vamos a ver. Claro, hagamos de. Hagamos esto. La verdad es que eso se pone gigante. Se pone gigante. Miedo. ¿Listos? Listo. No. John. John. See me?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. John, Bruno. Yeah, if I can. And
Hello?
okay, we're ready.
All right. Should I start?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to talk to you. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Raise your hands if you can hear me. Someone put up their hand. Very nice. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Jose, for the technical setup. My name is Jon Bruno, and I am the Executive Director of the International Ecotourism Society, which is the largest and oldest ecotourism society in the world. It was founded in 1990, and I have been the director since 2008. And we now, when I began as director, we had 800 members, and now we have 33,000 members in over 196 countries and territories. Everything all right, Jose? Todo va bien?
Perfect.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Our focus has been on the growth of natural sustainable tourism for many years. For many years, our work was kind of alone. Natural sustainable tourism was very small. Of course, now it has grown dramatically around the world and is one of the leading segments of tourism. As it has grown, we have grown, and we've worked very hard to increase the size of natural sustainable tourism around the world. Our definition of ecotourism is the most widely used in the world today. Many times when you see ecotourism defined in a publication or a periodical, you'll see the International Ecotourism Society defines ecotourism as, and that's not because there are not other very good definitions. The IUCN has an excellent definition. The UNWTO has an excellent definition. So there are other very good definitions of ecotourism. Ours happens to be the most widely used around the world because it is short and it encompasses everything that is important. The key part of all this is that we have been doing traveler research for 30 years, and a significant volume of travel research in the last 10 years on every continent. So, we have a significant amount of research in South America, in Central America, in North America, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in the South Pacific. So our expertise and best practices are a blend of global best practices from around the world. So sometimes a specific region will have a specific challenge, and we're able to bring in best practices from around the world, lessons that many different countries have learned. And thus, as a result, over 100 governments on Earth right now are implementing either ecotourism plans or supplementing those plans according to our definitions and policies. So there's a lot of very positive movement in sustainable tourism over the world. So this research has led us to some conclusions and has been widely shared and utilized by many different organizations. But there's one key factor that comes out. We've worked very hard to make sustainable tourism possible around the world. And consumers, we call them eco-travelers. Now, 70% of them list as one of their top 3 priorities that they want to travel sustainably. 70%. Now, if you know anything about the travel market, which I'm sure everyone here does, you know that there are really 2 billion crossers, people who are likely to cross borders. Jose, are we all good? Everything good? Perfect. Okay. So those 2 billion border crossers, who are they? Well, we call one segment of them the Apple 1 billion. And why do I say that? Because if Apple has, they have represent sort of the segment of people that do travel internationally, right? And then there are people that cross borders locally. So you might see someone cross border, from the United States into Mexico or Canada into the United States. That's a next door border crosser. So there are about 2 billion people who are candidates for border crossing, and of those candidates, 1 billion of them are very concerned with sustainability now. The trouble is that only 30% of them, or 300 million people, believe that they understand sustainability and how to travel sustainably. So in between the demand and the fulfillment is a 1 trillion, and that is one with 12 zeros, 1 trillion USD unmet demand. In other words, people who want to do something but cannot, but are not able to do that. Now, in any other business, if there was a $1 trillion unmet demand, what do you think would be happening? People would be trying to fill it. But in our industry, the previous speaker, unfortunately, my Spanish isn't as good as it should be, but, Andre mentioned that we need to collaborate, right? Work together. And that's very true. In this industry, we need to be more collaborative, right? So that we can educate the travelers in how they should travel, where they should travel to get the best experiences. So with those traveler stats, let's look at some of the major source markets. The major source market for Ecuador, for instance, is the United States, with international travel, 33% of the volume is coming from the United States. And the question is, how do we take what it is they want and what it is Cuenca and Ecuador have and put those together? And right now, we say Booking.com, American Express Travel, and TIES all agree, the International Ecotourism Society, we call it TIES for short, all agree that sustainable travel is a key desire of everyone who is traveling. 70% of people who are traveling want more sustainable travel. Sustainable travel is very inexpensive. It has a low front-end cost and a high ROI, or return on investment, meaning that for every dollar spent, you are receiving more. So you have a high return on investment. If we have unmet demand and low cost, we should be thinking about where those source markets are pointing, where they're ending up, and what they're doing. The first thing to recognize that we find at TIES is that travelers now want a genuine connection. Jose, can you tell me because I want to make sure that I say that. What's the Spanish for genuine connection? Can you say it? Thank you very. I won't do that too much, Jose. I apologize. That's the most important thing. So travelers are asking for a genuine connection to the place that they travel. So this is a connection that they aren't simply going there, experiencing a small version of the United States. They are experiencing a real connection to the place that they're traveling. This is particularly important from the United States. This is particularly important with young travelers below the age of 35. So the question is, how can we allow them to have that connection without spending any significant amount of revenue, without sacrificing revenue, and without having too much expense? Natural settings, during the pandemic, we learned this very much, that people want out in natural settings. They want to enjoy the beauty of nature. They want to be able to. What did people miss? They missed, during the pandemic, they said they missed beaches, they missed nature, they missed walking on trails. All of these things they missed during the pandemic. 65% of people said they wanted to go to the beach. 60% of people said that they wanted to go and walk in nature. So that's almost everyone said These are over 1 billion people are wanting to do these things, and they don't have those things in their cities, do they? They don't have them. So we ask ourselves, do we have natural settings that we can share with these inbound tourists? Are we sharing them? Are they available to these inbound tourists? It's very inexpensive to do this. There's not a lot of investment required, but there is the investment of time, and that's what we need to make sure happens. Can we do access to new areas? When we do this, we must be very, very respectful of the indigenous populations, of the communities that exist in these areas. We must be very, very respectful of the natural settings. We must be very, very respectful of the ecosystems. This is all an important part of sustainable travel and of new travel. When we're taking tourists, when we're making these things available, we must allow the local settings and the local ecosystems to flourish, not to be harmed by tourism. That's incredibly important. And it actually makes sense from a business sense too. Think about this. If you destroy the area where you're taking the tourists, that's going to mean that there's no more tourism. There's less tourism. If you sustain the area where you're taking the tourists, then you have an inexhaustible resource that will be there in 1,000 years. Mining isn't like that. Retail isn't like that. No other asset is like that. You have it, you can sell it, still have it. When you're bringing people to see beautiful natural assets, you are selling those assets, and you still have those assets. Isn't that beautiful? That's the only thing that's like it. So we need to take care of the nature and of the community that are in these places, of the ecosystems, the interrelation between the two. This genuine connection comes about when we share our cultures, when we share our natural settings in a genuine, respectful way. And what does that mean? That does not copying the things that the tourists want. So we don't say things like, tourists expect hamburgers. Yes, that may be what they eat at home, but that's not why they're traveling. We say tourists want to involve them in the local, they want to involve themselves in the natural facility actively, not just talk about it, actually do it. They want access, careful access to new areas. So things that other people haven't seen, things that people will say, wow, you went there? That's what they want. That's what they're putting, and the amazing thing is people will put these things all over social media. Thing I saw, or this place I went. We know that of tourism. Certainly Ecuador in general, and many of the locales, Cuenca is absolutely well situated for this type of tourism, right? So if we're asking ourselves that we need to grow these types of tourism, how can we make this available? Well, the real issue is making the information available. And making the information available that is available to the tourism networks. I'm going to tell you a statistic. It's very important. 96%, 96 in 100 today, when they book tourism, they want to book online and read about assets online before they book them. If they can, tourists like to book the entire itinerary and see what they're doing all along the way. They don't, maybe 70 years ago, someone would go to a country and they'd say, well, we'll find out what's there when we get there. People don't do that anymore. 96% of tourists now want to travel knowing where they're and what they're going to encounter. So they will see specific assets that they read about. And many times, if they can add ancillary services, that means, for instance, if I say, I'd like to go see this protected area, I want to go see a guide with me so that I have a professional guide coming along and asking tourists, for instance, I was just in Malaysia, and they said, well, how much should we be tried? A person who is the so this is a very important profession, but many times in tourism, we treat the guides as, sort of, well, they're there or they're not there, or they can do it or they can't do it. Guides are very people. So our entire network has to be a network of respect. And that means that we have to ask from the tourists that they treat the guides with respect, that they treat the destinations with respect, and that they treat nature with respect. We did this in Palau, which is an island in the middle of the South Pacific. And now when guests come in, they need to sign a document that states that they will take care. And it hasn't reduced tourism at all. Hasn't had a negative effect. In fact, if anything, tourism revenue has grown. So we can say to these travelers, and we can say that the services around them are high-end services. We can expect them to pay for high-end services. The average should be something in the neighborhood of $1,500 per tourist. Now, that's higher than it is right now in Ecuador. But there are plenty of nations in Central America. There's some in particular where that spend exists. And they are the most sustainable nations. So we should be saying that each tourist comes in, there are maybe 1.2 million tourists into Ecuador, and there would be maybe 200,000 visits to Cuenca. So